I just wanted to put together a little video about this because people always are asking me about how you can tell if somebody is cheating in Monster Rancher. And I need to preface this with saying cheating in Monster Rancher is not about making something better and stronger than something that everyone else has, right? It's not like in Tony Hawk where you can have like infinite balance or something like that. It's not a thing that gives you an advantage in competitive play. Cheating in Monster Rancher is all about foregoing the work to get to that point. The end result between a cheated monster and a non-cheated monster that has been raised optimally for competitive play is basically negligible, unless that it's extremely egregious. But the things we're going to be talking about are negligible in terms of competitive strength, competitive viability. But they were raised in a way that took all of the effort and all of the planning and all of the knowledge necessary to get to that endpoint out of the equation. This game does not have any mechanical skill. The skill floor in that sense is very, very low. The decision making and stuff like that in an actual battle is completely non-existent because it is just RNG. It's AI versus AI. Very, very hard to have any sort of input in that sense. So it's all about having input along the way. Raising your monster in a way so it's as optimal as possible that by the time you hand it off to the AI, it does its thing, hopefully. And we're going to talk about why it's really shitty and scummy to cheat going along this. So let's take a look. We got two examples for you. First is Motcambo. Motcambo has become a meme in the chat and in the community. It's not entirely, just don't pretend you're not a cheater. Well, I mean, I don't think that matters. I think just being like, yeah, I'm a cheater. Like, I don't know if that's better. Is that better? I don't know if that's better. Maybe marginally. These stats are not particularly unusual. This is a very normal stat line. This is actually maybe, while infinitesimally different, technically weaker than an optimal Kamui. And there's a reason for that. And the reason it is slightly worse than absolutely optimal is also the same reason we know it's a cheater. And the reason we know it's a cheater is because intelligence and defense are both at 3. It is literally not possible within the game's confines to have both your intelligence and your defense below 4. It's literally not possible. The reason for that is because the only way to lower intelligence is by doing the swim drill, which raises defense. And the only way to lower defense once you're below a double digit, so once you get to 9 or lower, we'll talk about that in a little bit, is by doing meditate, which increases intelligence. The absolute minimum you can raise your intelligence by when you do a meditate drill is 3. And the absolute minimum you can raise your defense by when you do a swim drill is also 3. So say if your defense was at 1, which is the absolute lowest a stat can go in Monster Rancher 2. So say you're trying to lower your intelligence to 1 as well. If your defense is at 1, the best you can hope for is only gaining 3 points in defense. It cannot gain less than that. There's literally no monster at no stage in its life that has a defense gain so putrid that it will not gain 3 defense on a swim drill. That is the absolute minimum. So that means if you have 1 defense and you do a swim drill, your defense is now at absolute minimum 4. You can get your intelligence all the way down to 1 and have your defense at 4, or you can have your intelligence at 4 and your defense all the way at 1. You can have your intelligence at 2 and have your defense at 4. It is just not possible because 1 plus 3 equals 4 to have both of these stats under 4 at the same time. It's possible to get either one of them to 1, but not both at the same time. Very, very, very funny that he decided to fake 3 intelligence and 3 defense because 4 and 1 is less than 3 and 3. So this is actually technically 1 point weaker than an absolutely optimized. What was the point of that? What was the point of doing this? But it's going to get a little bit more awkward. So I'm going to give you a little bit of how the sausage is made when it comes to checking for cheaters and things like that. But I'm not giving away everything because if I give away everything, then it makes it easier to cheat. I can guarantee you I could make a cheated monster that literally nobody else would be able to tell it's cheated. 100% guarantee, $1 million on the line. You would never be able to prove it if I were to cheat a monster. I haven't for like actual competitions and stuff. I have cheated monsters for the sake of building videos and getting footage and stuff like that, but I haven't for actual competitive play. And if KoeiTecmo doesn't give a shit, we're gonna get into that as well. Maybe I'm gonna start, because who's to say? You know, who's gonna stop me? Saw my Game Shark Cup entry. That guts rate seemed sus. Hey, I lost. I did really shitty in that tournament. Don't tell anybody. So this 3-3 is enough on its own to just be like, okay, this monster is cheated. Obviously. We don't need to go any further. But there's some other stuff that's really, really suspicious. His age is 5 years, 6 months old. And he has 38 weeks of lifespan left. This lifespan here, this initial lifespan, minus this, and minus this, 350 minus 308 is 42, right? Yes. So 42 is how many weeks this monster has spent doing things that are not just raising its stats on the ranch or resting. These are like things, weeks that have been wasted by going into battles, going on errantries, feeding a paradoxin and stuff. This is less than 3 paradoxins. 3 paradoxins would be what, 54 weeks? Because it's 18 weeks per. Yeah, 54. It's been a while since I've been in school. Don't judge me. So that means that he could have only used 2 paradoxins at most, which means that these stats were somehow got on 2 paradoxins, and then he went on battle, and he got up to rank B. He got stab. It's very, very unlikely with this 5 years and 6 months, especially because he did not feed them any gold peaches or silver peaches. What we were talking about earlier with lowering your intelligence, lowering your defense, the minimum gain of +3 is only actually possible in the worst stages of your monster's life. So in stage 1 and 2, and then for this monster in particular, and then in stage 9 and 10. He's only stage 8. He's only Elder 2, so he hasn't gotten to the end of his life yet. So that means that he somehow did all of this just in a normal lifespan with a couple of weeks left at the end of his life. If he only used 2 paradoxins, it would leave an absurd amount of defense to have to cheat down. He would be left with, I think, 100. It would be over 100, because this Kamui starts with 99 defense, and he starts with 200 and something intelligence. So if he got an absolutely perfect cheat roll every single week to get his intelligence down to 1, he would have something like 280 defense. I was doing the math earlier. And 2 paradoxins would bring it down to 100, and I think it's 108, something like that. So he would have 108, which means that between intelligence and defense, he would have 109 points here. So that means to get it to this point, because it's only -1 composite every single week, like +3 and then -4 on the cheat, it would take him 108 weeks to get it down to a serviceable level, or say 104 to be at 4 and 1. Again, 3 and 3 is not possible. We already know it's cheated. Already, like, we don't have to do any of this math. So that's 100 weeks of doing nothing but that, plus those 2 paradoxins. It doesn't sound that bad, right? And this is a late bloomer monster, so it is technically possible that he spent his whole life up to this point doing that. But that does not leave a lot of room to get the rest of these stats up. Not like 200 weeks to get the rest of the stats up. Maybe he'd have 400 power, 500 skill, and about 300 life. He's got pretty good stat gains, but I mean, that's rough. And then additionally, on top of all that, because there's more, there's no gold peach, there's no silver peach, so he wasn't fed any peaches to increase his childhood, which is normally what you do when you're doing this kind of hyper min-max bullshit that like we all do for competitive play. Normally you feed them a gold peach and a silver peach in their baby stages to increase the amount of times you can get this, because once you get out of the baby stage, -3 is no longer the lowest. +3 is no longer the lowest you can gain. It becomes a +4. And then at that point, you're not actually losing anything. You're trading 4 in one stat for 4 in another stat. You need the +3 -4 specific cheat, or else you will not actually be able to get both of them down. Because that's the only way to get both of those stats down, you need the +3 -4. It is only one specific roll on a cheat. It takes fucking forever. And it's part of the persistence, right? It's not a lot of fun, but it's a commitment. And so this cheating takes all of that commitment out of it. We have ways in competitive play to stop people from having to do that. We have rules where if your stat is below 100, it doesn't count towards the cap, things like that, because we know this isn't a lot of fun, right? And so you can crank out more monsters because this is a very time intensive and laborious process. It's not a lot of fun, but it's a thing that you kind of do because there is a satisfaction in doing it, right? And so that's why cheating is extremely, extremely frowned upon in this community, because it takes away all of the planning and all of the know-how required, which is arguably the only real skill in this game. These stats are not anything special. There are a billion other Kamuis that are exactly like this. But this one happens to be cheated, and it happened to make top 8. There's another little giveaway here that's cheated. Fake Life and I were talking about this. Is 76 nature. You wouldn't really think anything of this. When you're trying to stress out your monster at the end of its life, if your monster is a bad-natured monster, every 10 points in stress gives it 1% critical hit rate. So 100 stress is plus 10 crit. Really, really important on Tiger because this whole thing is getting a ton of critical hits. This completely fucking tanks your lifespan. This fucking tanks your lifespan. Like, there have been monsters where getting their stress to 100 has cost me 50 plus weeks, if not more, just to get it. So again, this 38 weeks of lifespan, none of this happening. It's possible for him to have hit these stats. Maybe. I would have to do exact math to figure out if it's possible. It would be close. He would probably have less than 38 weeks of lifespan left to make that happen, but then he would have absolutely no time to do this. This 76 nature, it should be higher. It should be minus 100, because if you're doing all of these cheats and you're not scolding, you don't want to scold your monster when it's cheating if you're trying to get these really, really bad gains, because the worse their nature is, the more they're going to cheat. And so it kind of feeds into itself. Already starts at minus 60. So what I think happened here is he didn't know how to increase stress. He didn't know how to cheat to increase stress. So he was scolding the cheats because that adds more stress. And so he was doing whatever it took to add more stress at the end of life to get stress up to 100. When you scold a cheat, it makes your monster more good-natured. It brings them away from worst towards best. But that also completely fucks up your loyalty. End of life, you don't want your monster to cheat at all because it really messes with your loyalty. So this cheat thing here, and the 100 loyalty, and the 100 stress, and the 0 fatigue is very, very suspect. 176 stress is just suboptimal and kind of shitty. For a monster like this, it's very easy to get to minus 100 nature, and it boosts the amount of times it'll get anger. You want it to get anger basically every single time it gets attacked. You want it to perpetually have anger, basically. So the 76 is not only bad, it's kind of indicative that he was scolding his monster at end of life and then cheated the loyalty back to 100 at the end. But so this was something, you know? This was definitely something. But it gets worse. It gets worse. So that's Motcambo. Motcambo made top 8, which is why we all fucking hate this, because it's a cheated monster in top 8. That sucks. This shit is so fucking egregious. This is so funny. There is a big Japanese YouTuber. He streams a lot of Monster Farm 2, and he lost to this monster in the very first round. This guy's got 1 intelligence and 1 defense. That shit is so fucking fake. This is legitimately fake. Additionally, power at 803, skill at 802, speed at 801. He's got like wasted points on like break points. So he doesn't even fucking know what he's doing. And over here, he's got minus 106 base nature, which is not possible. It's so fucking funny. This golem starts with like minus 35 base nature. He's got fury, so it's possible he actually did combine this monster and got its nature down. But you can't go below 100. Like, this is literally not possible. Even the effective nature is like kind of fucked up. It's like, well, this is probably a rounding error. It's probably minus 100. But this isn't a rounding error. This is legitimately just the dude doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. It's so funny. And then he's speedy, but he's only got minus 62 form. So like, these people don't know how to play the game. It's so frustrating. watching this shit because like I feel so bad for the guy this monster beat because this dude doesn't fucking know anything. Obviously 5 additional points in life isn't going to make a huge difference. It's not a big deal, but like this was done so slapdash. This like no effort was put in to even like making this look real. No effort was put into raising this monster in the first place. I have no words. This shit is so fucking stupid. This is irredeemably bad because 1, it's built poorly, and 2, you cheated. Like pick one or the other, you know? If you're going to cheat, at least get your fucking numbers right. And if that wasn't bad enough, you guys want to see TECMO's response to this? KoeiTecmo's response to the cheating. This is going to piss some people off. KoeiTecmo reached out to me and a couple of Japanese players to try and figure out what the hell was happening here, you know? And then they issued a response, and this is the response. After checking, inspecting, and verifying the situation, the result was that we could not prove there was anything wrong with the data. Regarding the parameters that you were worried had an effect on the results of battle, like guts restoration and hit percent, etc., there were no issues with that data as well. Thank you so much for all the valuable information regarding this case. We will use this information when performing data checks in the future to ensure everyone can have an enjoyable experience. Couple of things. 1, nobody ever fucking mentioned guts rate. Nobody ever fucking mentioned hit percent. This is just, like, it's as if they don't know how to read. It's as if they care so fucking little about the community that they didn't bother reading the responses. They heard someone say they're cheated, and then they're like, okay, I guess we'll check. And they're like, well, guts rate looks okay, so I guess that's normal. And then they didn't read the rest, and then they wrote a canned response. I think the only word for it is pathetic. I don't want to burn bridges. I love this game. I love the fact they put it out again. I'm excited for Line. But this response is literally like the most pathetic response possible. They did not read a single thing anyone wrote them, and they responded to the wrong question. They responded to a question that was not asked. It sucks. It fucking sucks. It feels like there is a gigantic wall between us and KoeiTecmo. I will be the last person on earth to call devs lazy. I see that shit online all the time. All the time, people are like, oh, I can't believe this doesn't work. The devs are so lazy. And it's like, bro, the devs probably care more about the game than you ever will. Doesn't matter how much you like the game. And 2, it's incredibly difficult work. Mistakes are going to happen. I have a huge tolerance for like just accepting that game dev is a complicated nonsense beast. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes, you know, shit happens. But this was a way for them to reach out to the community with goodwill and be like, hey, we realize that you guys care about this and we're going to look into it and we're going to try and come up with a solution. There's 2 possible situations that I've come up with that is probably what happened. 1, like I said, they either didn't read it and they don't give a shit, or 2, they found so much cheating that it's not worth addressing. There are so many cheated monsters that it is not worth the time to vet. And I'm guessing that's probably it. They were just like, look, this monster doesn't have a 10,000 power, whatever. I don't give a shit. Because they don't understand that these stats here, this is not impressive. Anybody can do this. Anybody who like follows my guides or spends 20 minutes in the community can build a monster after like maybe destroying 1 or 2 trying to get there. This could be like anybody's 3rd monster. That's not to say if you're new to the community and you built something like this and you're proud of it that you shouldn't be proud of it. You should, because it takes work. It's just a build that we see hundreds of times a week in the DXBL, but you need to build it. That's exactly it. You need to fucking build the thing. That's where the skill comes in. That's where the difficulty comes in. That's where player strength matters. It's in choosing the techs. It's in choosing the stat loadout specific for the meta, and it's in actually executing your plan. You guys watch my stream. You know how many times I set out to plan and build a monster, and like an hour in, I'm like, okay, shit. I got a little too amped up. I'm not going to be able to actually make the build I want, and I have to like pivot. Getting the thing that is exactly what you want from the beginning takes a lot of planning and a lot of resetting and probably a lot of splintered save states that you can go back to if something doesn't go your way. Because I do it on stream, I don't do that because I think that would be pretty boring to watch. But if you wanted your thing to end up exactly as you planned it, you need to be meticulous. It's a lot of work. Like, a lot of work. And so to take all that shit away and say, yeah, there's nothing wrong because this monster doesn't instantly win. It's not only a slap in the face to be like, oh yeah, thank you, we appreciate it, but like we're not going to do anything about it. But it's also like a blatant indictment of how little they understand their own game. I don't think it's the game dev's place to know and shape competitive meta. I think they built a fantastic game, and we decided to take it a step further and play in a way that wasn't necessarily intended. So I don't think it's ever a game dev's intention, or it should be their prerogative, to control what happens at absolute top level play. I don't think that's what they should be doing. They should be trying to make a fun experience, and if people think it's fun enough, maybe they'll do something no-lifey, like play Monster Rancher competitively, right? And I think they succeeded in the fun. They kind of have to realize at this point they're sort of out of their wheelhouse, right? It would benefit to like actually listen instead of just giving canned response. I doubt they know the game well enough to know what to do with it. Yeah, and I mean, that's fair, right? Like, it's okay for them to not know what to look for when it comes to catching cheaters in competitive play. I'm not saying, oh, those stupid devs, as if they don't know. Like, I get that. I understand that they decided to look at the most important stuff. But there is a context missing wherein just because the monster isn't obscenely powerful doesn't mean it's fair, right? Like, I don't want to sit here and be like, game devs need to be the best players of their own game. There's entire think pieces and shit written on that, and I think it's incredibly stupid and toxic to have that mentality that like, if you can't perform at a top level in your own game, or you don't know the mechanics of it at a top level inside and out, then you don't deserve to work on the game. There's so many fucking mouth breathers that have that opinion, and I don't have that opinion. I don't think that's necessary at all. Like I said, I think it's necessary to know how to make a fun game, and the competitive scene will be built out of that if the game is fun. And so I think as a game dev, the goal should be make a fun game that everyone enjoys. Any actual rules on the tournament that say you can't bring a cheated monster? There's nothing in the rules that says a dog can't play basketball.